take you guys off. Hey, let's try to do this thing right here. Welcome to the show, everybody. We've back. Took a day off to spend with family. Their Valentine's Day, so hopefully everybody had a great time. On Valentine's Day, and condolences to those who did not have a partner. So that's that. As the joke says, hopefully you guys had a great Valentine's Day, because you didn't get the V or the D. So that is the joke. So yeah, but hopefully everybody had a great Valentine's Day. Next week, unless the guys change their mind and they want to do something, we'll be off next week too, because it's my son's birthday. So I'm gonna try to take that off and spend time with them. But this episode brought to you, as always, by ERT Radio, courtesy of Ron. Go over there to Mixlr.com, set up your account. Takes, like I said, no time at all, about a minute and a half. Put your information in there, and then now you can listen to replays of our show, Into the Outer Realms. You can listen to live programs, and just as we go through. So just as you do those things, so make sure you go to Mixlr.com, set up your account. ERT Radio, proud sponsor of the Three Beards podcast. All right, man of the hour, Joel Stern. He translated this book. I'm going to butcher their names, so I'm just going to say Anna and Merrick. They were the original authors that did this remarkable case of poltergeist activity and psychokinetic power. And Joel Stern translated that from Polish into English to open it up for a greater audience. And so I've got this book. He's with us right now. He's going to be joining us via telephone. So you won't see a picture, but you're going to hear a disembodied voice. It's not a ghost. It really is Joel Stern. So everybody sit back. We'll get here to the show here. So Joel Stern and the Elusive Force is next. Welcome to the Three Beards podcast. My name's Craig, along with Austin and Chris.
Passed to a new generation of Americans born in this century.
Let me out.
I'm afraid that is right.
Justice and honor in Massachusetts colony?
All right, and Chris is on vacation, and so
let's just go right to Joel.
Yep. So we're going to be right here. So we have him on the phone. Let's bring him right on. Joel Stern via the telephone. How are you, sir?
Hi.
Welcome to the broadcast. Sorry.
Well, thank you, Mark, Brian, and Craig. I'm honored to be your guest tonight.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being on here.
So, since you're on like one of those crank phones from the like 1910s, do you have a beard?
Do I have a what?
A beard.
A beard.
Facial hair.
Facial hair.
Oh no. No, I'm clean shaven.
So now it's 2-2. Mark is.
We won't hold that against you.
Okay,
but Mark appreciates the brotherhood.
Yeah.
Yes. So, but this is, it's a fascinating.
I thought you asked me if I had a beer.
No. Well, you can have.
Well, you can have one of those too. Nobody can judge because we can't see it.
We're fine with that.
I want to be sober during this show.
You may change your mind shortly and start drinking heavily.
But it's great to have you on the broadcast. So looking forward to this.
Yeah. So start off for everybody. Like I said, I'm holding up the book here, sir, but Joel, so everybody can see. It's the Elusive Force. This is the fascinating case in 1983 in Poland of Joasza Gajewski. If you're, anything but Polish, it would be Gajewska. And this is one where, just with reading the book, I said we'll get into this through the show, but like I said, just to lay it out for everybody, it's really fascinating because in the beginning, it really speaks of where this looks like, Catholic priests need to be involved. This is a this is a massively haunted house. And then through the research, as we go through the story, you're going to finding out that she has a large role in these occurrences that are going on as well.
May I just make one minor correction? It wasn't a haunted house. They were occupying what you would call an efficiency apartment.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, the apartment. Yeah.
It wasn't a house per se. And it was a small town of Sosnowiec in southern Poland, in a province called Silesia, which used to belong to Germany before the Second World War, and after the war, it was taken over by Poland. So they were living in an area where, which had formerly been a German colony.
Well, even during, like what you said, because
the scene for you,
yeah,
where it was located, that's important.
Yeah, because during that time too, that was one of the things of the story. Just the fact that they were coming out of this, I mean, that had to be brave just in itself, with being behind the Iron Curtain in 1983. This isn't something
that certainly affected the reception of this case to a large extent, but we can talk about that more later on.
So, in this case, how did it come about that it was investigated? Is it because of the girl exhibiting, these abilities, or was this something that was, muttered throughout and someone picked up on it and said, "Hey, let's go investigate this"?
We have to start from the very beginning.
Sure.
It was in the Easter holiday of 1983. I believe it was the night of April the 4th. After the Easter dinner and watching television, family, it is the mother, Joasza's grandfather, and Joasza herself went to bed. The father was a plumber who had some kind of night shift at a steel plant, so the father wasn't there at that time. And late in the evening, Joasza's grandfather was awoken by a mat that fell from the wall, and he tried to put it back, and it started dancing around literally in the air, and other objects started flying around wildly, smashing into walls. Grandfather at first thought that Joasza was playing some sort of prank on him, but it turned out that she was asleep. And naturally, the grandfather became very frightened, and the mother came into the parlor where the daughter and her father were running around frantically. And they obviously could not explain what was happening, and they ran upstairs to the neighbors. They were scared to death. The neighbors came down and also saw flying objects. And in fact, they were hurtling so fast through the air that they couldn't see the objects. Only when they smashed into the walls, glass tumblers, matches were flying around. It was utter chaos, utter bedlam. That's the first incident. It happened all of a sudden, inexplicably. There was really no warning, no inkling that something like this could have happened.
Now, did they ever, real quick, clue into on that part? Was there ever talk like at that beginning that they thought it might have been grandma involved in this, or was it something that they thought it was other effects?
But what do you mean by other stuff?
No, it's just that's when you have paranormal activity, the first thing that would pop in your head, was it grandma, or was this they were still thinking, okay, this might be something demonic, this might be something, where it's a haunting as
Oh,
opposed,
I
because
see what
most people weren't,
was.
because most people weren't going towards the
Well,
telekinesis side.
well, the first step the family took was to summon witnesses. Police officials, members of the municipal board in the town, who were at first very skeptical, but they eventually witnessed these very destructive, unpredictable phenomena and prepared a report, which attracted the attention of some researchers. What you would call, well, trying to think the term.
Was it more?
The first hypothesis was that something in the building was wrong. The walls of the building were settling. There may have been cracks. Underground water courses may have been undermining the foundation, and that was the first theory. But it fell through because these events kept happening, even though the inspectors who came ruled out any problems with the construction of the building. So the town authorities decided to move the Gajewski family from Sosnowiec to a smaller town, Chelaj, which I guess it's a kind of suburb a few miles outside of Sosnowiec, in the hope that the new residents would bring an end to these strange happenings. But unfortunately, they didn't. And this was when the case began attracting a wider attention. Do you want me to stop there and ask me?
Well, we could, yeah, because I was one of those things. I'm trying to remember from when I read that chapter too. Did the activity at their original residence, did that stop almost immediately? Did they moved out,
No,
or was there still like
no,
residual that happened?
It continued. No, it continued. Oh, when they moved out?
Yeah, when they moved out.
Well, for a long time, I don't know exactly how long, the apartment remained vacant because people were fearful. Obviously, they thought that either there was some kind of demonic entity haunting the premises or whatever. But when new people did eventually move in, there were no further events like that happening.
Right.
So apparently, Yawasha herself was causing these, strange occurrences.
Yeah, because you could definitely clue into that part. Yeah, at that.
Joel, did you start your case study with the time setting, and it's around Easter? Does a holiday of that significance play a role in
No. Well, I can only go by what the book says. There's no connection between the Easter celebration and the beginning of these phenomena. But there is a possible connection because not long before Easter, sometime in 1982, Yawasha's grandmother had died. This is mentioned in the book.
Right.
And Yawasha was very attached to her grandmother and took her death very, seriously, and was, quite distraught. So this affected her, her emotional state. And there's some belief that the interaction of her emotional state and her hormonal changes in the stage of puberty might have been the cause. Now, this is just a hypothesis. It's one hypothesis that's dealt with in the book.
And Joel,
Yes.
the actions taking place in the original homestead. What was the age of the girl at that point? Was she still?
Well, she was 13.
She was 13.
13 in the sixth grade, I believe.
Right. And did she start puberty, or was this pre-puberty? Puberty.
Oh, no. She was, well, according to the book, she was in a stage of puberty.
Okay.
Yeah.
It all that has a huge bearing
Yep.
On
Yes, it
events.
does. We can go into that further, but
Yeah, we will definitely.
Well,
go
that was kind of where when I led into that question, that's why I was wondering if the hypothesis was ever that this was grandma that was doing this activity, because there was such a
grandma or grandma.
grandma had already passed away when this stuff
addressed.
started.
Well, if one adopts a spiritualist approach to these types of phenomena, it's conceivable. But
Well, I was more just like the general, mood of everybody in the beginning of this thing. Was that like one of the first things floated? Besides, like, could be we had the Department of Urban Planning was involved.
Also mentioned in the first chapter that the family, they're not, I'll say, devoutly Catholic. They didn't have any religious icons or Bibles lying around in plain view, but they did summon a priest who performed some sort of ceremony. But this was in the original, apartment, not where they moved.
Yeah, I just didn't remember any of the researchers if they clued in on that part.
It had no effect.
Yeah.
It's being someone who investigates this stuff and seeing that it was a young girl. Me personally, from my personal experience, one of the first things I would be also looking at is the telekinesis or parakinesis, and it's definitely one of the things I would have been looking at to try to explain some of these things prior to. But that's just because I'm coming from a different background. If you get the general public, the local sheriff or policeman, and then, city planner or whatever it is, and they're like, they don't know what this is baffling to them.
Well, it still is baffling. There's no, the final conclusion is that 40 years later, we still don't have an explanation. We only have hypotheses, some of which are more plausible than others, but we just don't have the equipment or the knowledge to satisfactorily explain such phenomena. The difference in Yuasha's case is that she was studied intensively over a period of 40 months by several teams of specialists. This is very unusual in most cases like this.
Well, I really liked how she bonded with that one researcher too.
Oh yeah,
Dr. Gadula.
He was a very, very courageous man, because Poland at the time, it was a very conservative Catholic country, and they do not look kindly on paranormal phenomena. It's attributed to witchcraft or occult forces. So there was a lot of tension.
Yeah, you're 100% correct, because if you go back to the Eastern European, if we look at Bram Stoker's Dracula and Mary Shelley, it's always the villagers that, like, no demons, so this is taking place in that kind of society to a certain degree. Like, this is not, I'm give the man a ton of credit for doing what he did, because this could have resulted in a major persecution by, the townsfolk and everybody around.
I agree. He was an unusually courageous man. Some of the researchers who worked with him did want to remain anonymous. However, they were afraid of losing their position or, their reputation. But he stepped forward, as did a number of others, whom we can mention later on.
Sure. And then let's continue from when they moved to the new home and the new location.
Yes, new apartment in the small town of Chelad. Yes. Well, these events continued with variable intensity. I mean, there's no predictability about them. He became, I guess you would saw an object of notoriety throughout Poland because, journalists started flocking to the town to see what was going on. And that's where the authors of the book, Mark Ramushko and Anna Stitska, step into the picture. They were investigative journalists in Warsaw, and they wanted to treat the matter seriously. At first, they were skeptical, but when they started reading, police reports and so forth, they thought that this matter deserved a closer look, and that was their impetus for writing, the book. As I mentioned, Dr. Gadula, who was a surgeon at some sort of vocational rehabilitation clinic, decided to form a team of specialists to delve further into this case. And, the first few chapters of the book set forth their procedures, some of their findings, and that's where things progressed.
Well, you had the Japanese researchers arriving as
that came a little later.
Okay.
Yes, there was when the specialists presented their preliminary findings to the scientific community in Poland, other teams were eventually involved in this, and news of their activities started spreading to mass media outside of Poland. It attracted attention. Unfortunately, most of it was sensationalistic, or downright wrong, but a Japanese crew from the biggest TV channel, I think it was Fuji Television, if I remember correctly, came to Poland to study the case and film it if anything could be caught on camera. And one of the chapters of the book is devoted to them.
Yeah, well, because as we get up to that part, because we're not even there yet to where the sanatorium comes into play. Because there's one of those.
That was the most spectacular.
Yeah, and that's one of those when we get into that part, because there's
the whole 7 years during which these phenomena occurred. That was made a believer out of me and many other people, actually.
Well, that's what it.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I was just gonna say that's one of those, because we're getting to that point, because right now, the way that this ramps up is, I really actually liked it, because especially like Gadula and stuff, they actually came through this from the scientific side. This wasn't one of those like, oh my God, we found Neo from the Matrix. We found the chosen one. They were going through going, okay, what, we need to figure this out. So they were doing all these tests, and he actually, I think part of the reason why they bonded so well was because not only was he so focused on the scientific side, he was also focused on the humanitarian side of, this is still a human being. We can't mistreat her in the process of trying to get an answer.
Absolutely right.
Yep.
It's interesting that you mentioned that, because it was found that irradiating say a room or laboratory with infrared rays would kind of provide a spark to these phenomena. Now, I don't know why that happened, but these rays would make the teenager violently ill. So they had to terminate some experiments, out of concern for her welfare.
Mm-hmm.
These were not heartless scientists. These were people with a heart, conscience, and I respect them for that.
Yeah, I mean, them trying to study the child, under like a laboratory conditions that's written in the book. When you get scientists like this, they really treat you like a lab rat. And when they're
Yes,
not,
that's true.
and some a lot of people will treat them, her like a lab rat, but I give credit to the ones that said no, 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 we're not doing that. Because that could have, if she's having these and exhibiting these type of powers, that could have been deadly in the long run. I really can be, depending on how well she is equipped to produce these type of events.
Well, she didn't have conscious control all the time. I mean, it's very unpredictable. To some extent, she could channel the energy of these phenomena. That's mentioned in the book when she, the time when she was at the sanitarium. She was able to channel this energy into a very destructive form, but in other occasions, she was completely helpless.
Yep.
It was a very strange case in many respects.
Oh yeah.
Well, yeah, because you're right about the helpless part, especially in the beginning when they're at their original residence. I mean, as it was told, I mean, glasses are just flying through there, smashing. There's shards of glass everywhere, cutting.
Well, people were injured.
Yeah, herself included.
Visitors were injured, and she herself was cut many times by flying glass. So
it's an interesting process. Them working for like 7, 8, 9, months on this, and really not knowing what to do with it initially, right?
well, we couldn't identify the source. Unless you can identify the source of the problem, you really don't know how to address it. You're just casting about for solutions,
Right.
and without, and even the researchers differed among themselves on how to explain this phenomenon, how to alleviate the girl's condition, how to help her parents, how to make her schoolmates accept her. It's a very complex situation.
Oh, I definitely would not want to have been part of the that team. I mean, I research and investigate this stuff, but first of all, I probably would have been kicked off the team because I would have went at it at a different approach. More like a lot more.
Well, I'm curious
humane.
about what approach you would have taken, but we can discuss that later if you wish.
Sure.
No, well, that was it, because like the ones that took it, she bonded. It seemed to, like, Kadula's approach was the one that she really seemed to latch onto. She really respected because of the way he treated her. The ones that she really didn't were the ones that were more had the demands. Do this for me. I want you to do this for me, and she would shut down.
Right.
Right. Freeze. The expression used was freeze up. One psychiatrist demanded that she bend a spoon for him in his presence, which she did, and then he demanded that she bend 10 more spoons in his presence. She wasn't a machine. She's a human being, and she reacted to people in different ways, and she could not produce these effects on demand. It doesn't work like that.
Yeah. And what I in this situation, and seeing where we are in basically Eastern Europe, I wonder, were any of these people connected to government agencies and thinking differently than Dula?
Well, that's a good question. As I mentioned before, some of the researchers had to hide their identities because their positions might have been endangered, or their reputations could have been affected. How did the communist authorities react to this? How should I say it? they were not receptive to research. They thought it was some sort of hoax, or they didn't think it was a serious matter. And the researchers had to raise financing on their own, basically. They had to do this on their own dime. And the only reason that it ceased after 40 months, there was no more funding to be had.
Yeah, but
which is a great shame.
it's
great loss to science.
Yes,
You know?
but
It's amazing that the research continued for as long as it did, only because of the courage and integrity of these, teams, the specialists.
Yep,
And they
100%.
faced believe me, they faced great obstacles. But they just did not have the resources to continue this for a longer period of time, which is a great.
Yeah, I've often wondered if this had been a modern thing, just what more could have been garnered from this study. Because one, like I said, we're talking 1983 to about,
Right.
1988, 89?
Well, no. I would
When it
say
was when she finally just went away?
To late 1986.
Because it was like 89, wasn't that when she graduated, like from medical school,
yes.
and she kind of disappeared?
The research itself was conducted from mid-1983 to late 1986, at which time the funding ran out. But the events did not stop until she reached the age of, let's say, 20, sometime in 1990. So that's the time period we're discussing.
And when she reached 20, did it officially stop, or that's when she stopped?
I can't really answer that because it's not indicated in the book. The book was written in 1989 when the events were still occurring. So whatever happened after that is a matter of speculation. I don't have firsthand information in that. All I can tell you is when she reached the age of 20, the phenomena started tapering off.
I just want to read you a comment from one of our viewers.
Sure.
Calabus, who says, what do you think of James Randi, and would this woman have claimed the prize money if you know what James Randi has?
Yes, I know. He offered $1 million.
Yeah.
Well, I don't wish to address James Randi. All I can tell you is that the teams of reputable scientists, physicians, metallurgists, experts in other fields studied her intensively under strict laboratory conditions for 40 months. They came to the conclusion that there was no hoax.
Yeah, I mean, it would.
And furthermore, these phenomena were witnessed by dozens of other, if not hundreds of other people, including trained policemen, nurses, physicians at the sanitarium, who were eyewitnesses, and either they were suffering a mass delusion, or one has to give credence to the testimony of these people. I don't believe they were in a conspiracy to.
No, I don't either.
Perpetrate a hoax of some kind. And if you remember Dr. Richard Broughton's introduction to the book, he's a very eminent paranormal researcher. He puts the question very bluntly: either we give credence to these specialists who've been researching these phenomena for decades, or they're deliberate liars. Why would they want to risk their reputation for the sake of a hoax?
Well, and
so does that answer your question about Mr. Randi?
No, it definitely does. And the gentleman said, "Thank you for reading my question, and I appreciate the answer." So thank you, Joel. It's interesting because you're still a little bit on the Eastern. There's still a little bit of that Eastern Bloc mentality, even back in the late '80s, early '90s, and my fear is that actually, I'm happy that they stopped and they ran out, and I'm put air quotes up, ran out of funding, because I think the problem would have been that government, or like KGB, deep state, whatever you want to call it, would have come in, and they have unlimited funding, and they would have obliterated this girl, trying to pick and prod her, and make her whatever, do all these tricks. So I'm kind of on one side happy about it, but on another side, kind of sad that being a father with daughters, you know, I wouldn't want any of this bad stuff to happen to them. And it's really scary when you don't know what you're doing, and it just appears. Yeah. Boom. That's me.
Yeah, Joel, I just kind of to follow up with what Brian said. 40 years ago, you know, there was, the possibility of, like Brian said, the deep state, just really obliterating this girl. She would, never recover from the demands placed on her. You know, here we are 40 years later. Brian is throwing out more of a humanitarian look at such a test subject. Do you find that overall, the people who are going through these experiences and are being studied, they are having more humane treatment than
I can't answer that question.
Okay.
I think discuss a little about my own background so that the
Okay.
listeners will
Yes, that'd be
understand.
great.
I should have actually begun with that because I'm not a professional paranormal researcher. I have a strong interest in certain topics relating to paranormal themes such as reincarnation, time slips, time warps, if you want to call them. But I'm a translator by profession, and I'm not going to make any. I would not be presumptuous enough to make a judgment on the cause of these phenomena or the current status of research on them. I just don't have the background to do that. All I can tell you is what I've learned from my own reading and conversations with people, but this is not firsthand research. So in answer to your question, I don't know what the procedures now, how they progressed from what was followed 40 years ago. I would hope that they're more humane, but again, I can only speculate.
Well, Brian, what do you think? You're on, the fancy TV shows talking about stuff like that.
Thanks, Mark. I believe that there is an element in our world and societies that want to take individuals that have these gifts and abilities and exploit them for not nice usage, and they don't really care about the humanity.
I agree with you. The remote viewing program, for the U.S. intelligence agencies, and I know the Soviets were deeply involved in exploiting psychic gifts.
Yeah.
for nefarious purposes. Let's say.
Yep. 100%.
So I agree with you, and this may
Right.
still be going on for all I know.
I mean, yeah, there are remote viewers around the world. You're actually talking to one right now.
Oh,
Yes,
wow.
and I do it. But and it's just when it gets to things like this, and you're able to bend and manipulate materials or structures or the molecular structure of things, that is major league.
Mhm.
That goes beyond knowing the information by remote viewing or seeing or smelling or tasting. That goes into the ability of creating a super soldier. And
Yes, these abilities, if channeled in a certain way, could prove to be very destructive.
right now,
And Yoasha proved that. She did have sometimes had conscious control
right,
over these abilities. And being a teenager, of course, she wanted to display them to her friends and her stay in the sanitarium proved this. She wanted to prove that she was better than this TV girl, who supposedly could, also bend objects
right.
and create gravitational disturbances. So, Yoasha wanted to show off.
Yeah,
remember, she's only a 13-year-old girl.
And she's trying to fit into a world
Right,
that, yeah.
exactly.
So now let me,
yeah, go ahead, please.
So, you like time slips and rips, right? And I've
that of all the paranormal phenomena, that fascinates me the most.
I'll talk to you later about that
for
if
a
you
personal reason, but we can talk about that.
No,
but I feel as if I'm in some kind of time slip because I've always been fascinated with the music, furniture, the surrounding, the Art Deco style, the 1920s and 30s.
Yeah.
My house looks like a
speakeasy,
time capsule.
A speakeasy.
That period. It's very strange. I don't have a rational explanation for it. So I feel as that I myself am in some kind of a time slip. It's very strange. So I identified with people who find themselves in such situations,
Oh, I can appreciate that. Something that I would recommend is maybe you, I've been talking about this with another person for a while now. Maybe you have been reincarnated, and this is just a connection to that time period.
One day, if I can find a reputable person to do that, I would like to undergo hypnotic regression.
That's definitely a suggestion.
I definitely want to do. That's one of my goals because you're familiar with the case with Edgar Casey.
Oh yeah,
who went into I think that's really what started my interest in paranormal phenomena in general. Back in the 70s,
right.
Somehow I heard about him and I started reading material about his, trances or readings.
Yep.
It just fascinated me beyond belief.
He's definitely an interesting gentleman.
Joel, have you been to his the Edgar Casey Center in Virginia?
I went there back in around 1990 to Atlantic University for a lecture by John Anthony West, the famous Egyptologist, who argues that the Sphinx was far older than conventional, scholarship assumes. So I went to hear a lecture by Mr. West. That was my one time at Atlantic University. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to go to the library and look up Mr. Casey's readings. But I've read books about him.
Yeah.
And he is such a unique figure. I mean, he didn't go past 6th grade. He grew up in Kentucky, and yet when he went into these his trance readings, he could speak ancient languages. How can one account for that?
Well, that's what I was trying to get to with the time rips and slips. I'm wondering if there was some kind of environmental residual effects that may have contributed to the young lady maybe getting hit by something or feeling the effects of it, and that enhanced her ability to produce these events.
Well, that's a matter of speculation. I can't
Right.
address that question directly. I have no idea.
Right.
It's not really mentioned in the book. Apart from her emotional upheaval after the death of her grandmother and her puberty-related hormonal changes,
Oh, you're
anything else is just,
yeah.
hypothetical.
Yeah, but when people that do research this that were in the West, and there are people that do research this type of exact type of
course.
situations, and they know that it's usually young females,
Mhm.
well into it goes past puberty, and there's usually a traumatic event and the whole puberty thing, and something in there allows them to manipulate objects. Now, I personally, and I'm just throwing my own theory because I can. I think it has to do with the fact that females use both hemispheres of the brain
But
versus
that's a
males.
major topic in the book, actually.
Yeah.
There was one a psychologist named Miroslav Hartradek who gave her several dozen tests of focusing on the activity of her brain hemispheres. And he came to the conclusion that there were certain anomalies in her, nervous system that
Right.
may have contributed, at least to some extent, to the origin of these, kinetic effects. But again, it's a hypothesis
Right.
among
Yeah,
others, one among others.
her right hemisphere drew the most attention after
Yes.
both were studied.
Yes, there were certain anomalies in the functioning of the right hemisphere. And frankly, the technical descriptions are a little beyond my field of expertise, so I'm not going to go into that. All I can tell you that there were certain physical abnormalities in our hormonal balance and our brain functioning that set her apart.
Real quick, well, yeah, there's the same question. Have you delved into a lot of the MK Ultra and the remote viewing research in the human aspect of it?
I've read articles here and there, but I'm by no means an expert on that subject. Why do you ask?
Well, that was the question. One of the guests, one of the viewers had,
Listeners?
because because I was the same thing as I was reading this, especially with the way MK, like he brings it up, MK Ultra, where the way these programs were working. I was actually surprised that the Soviet, and the Polish authorities didn't actually try to use her in one of these aspects militarily, because if she had this ability for this ability to move objects, to bend objects,
right,
she would have been valuable in this thing. And I was surprised that they didn't go after this part, that they actually left her alone, because the Iron Curtain still hadn't fallen at this point.
That's a very good point, and for whatever reason, that never happened, which I guess was to her benefit.
Well, maybe the reason it didn't happen is because the people that were around her, especially the scientists that wanted to remain nameless, knew what would happen if this girl.
That's very possible.
got
I
to the
hadn't
other
thought of
side.
that actually, but
Yeah.
sounds plausible to me. They definitely wanted to protect her. She was a very likable person, according to what, I met her twice. There's nothing demonic about her. The only remarkable feature was her eyes. They were very piercing. They saw right through you.
Yeah. Well,
And,
I wonder if her inability to do it on command was like was the not a good candidate part, where it's like somebody, when they were paying attention, because I'm sure somebody was following. There had to be somebody in a secret, in a secret agency paying attention. But I wonder if that was the part where they, one of the scientists, very well could have been part of one of these agencies, and it could have just been like, she can't do it on command.
Well, again, I can't answer that directly.
So, just quick question for you: when you met her, she was around in her 20s.
Well, let me recapitulate.
Sure.
Shortly after I completed my translation in the summer of 1989, well, maybe I should backtrack a little bit. How did I find out about this case?
That would be that.
Because
Actually,
a couple I met in Washington when I was working at the State Department, a Polish couple. The husband was a bioenergy therapist, and the wife was a journalist. They gave me a copy of the book to read, and they told me that an American publisher might be interested in having it translated. I read the book and was very enthusiastic. I thought it deserved a wider audience, not only because of the scientific importance, but also the human interest. Now, the girl's plight, it touched me. And unfortunately, the couple who gave me the book, they were not completely forthright and honest. There was no American publisher interested in it. And I think they just wanted to use the book to feather their own nest. But let's leave that unpleasant episode aside.
right.
Yeah.
I finished my translation in the summer of 1989, and I contacted the authors in Warsaw, Mark and Muszkarana Rostitska, and I went to Warsaw in October of that year, and I met them, and we hit it off right away. You know, fortunately, I could speak Polish, so that, and they don't know English, so that enabled me to communicate with them. They took me to meet Elusive. We drove all the way from Warsaw to southern Poland. It took several hours. And we went to see the family in Chelad, where they were living at the time. It was a very shabby Soviet-era apartment building. You know, if you know what I mean, these concrete monstrosities, very ugly and utilitarian. Not an attractive place to live. But in any case, we went to visit Urasha, and I met her and her parents and a few eyewitnesses, Urasha's friends who had been struck by flying objects. So that was my first encounter with her in 1989. She bent a spoon for me right before my eyes by rubbing it with one or two fingers for a couple of moments, and it started bending like a flower, you know, like a stalk of a flower.
Right.
It was my only paranormal experience. I've never had any experience like that afterwards. And the second time I went to visit the authors in the summer of 1990, and we went down by car again to visit Urasha. She was in nursing school at the time, and she was kind enough to bend a second spoon for me. I've kept both of them as souvenirs of my one and only paranormal experience. I don't know. I guess I went off in a tangent. You asked me a question.
Oh,
No,
that's
I'll tell you.
welcome to Three Beards Podcast.
Yeah, that is a great little memento for you and anybody else in relationship to that. To have
The strongest man in the world could not unbend these spoons. I believe me, they're twisted like pretzels.
And it's amazing what this is why I investigate what I investigate. And because of these events, because in my opinion, there has to be a rhyme and reason why there are individuals in this world that can do this. And I believe that we all have the gift and ability to get to that point of doing it. Some are just more advanced than others. I'm just happy to know that if she's in, you know, a real career, and this is kind of being put behind her for the most part. I hope.
Well,
She's off the radar.
Completely, because before I forget, when these events eventually stopped sometime in 1990, after I visited her, she graduated from nursing school and started working in the local hospital. She got married, had 2 children, and apparently changed her name, and all trace of her since then has been lost.
Smart
The
girl.
authors of the book back in 2015 tried to contact her by putting an editorial in the magazine that they ran in Warsaw. But there was no response. I conjecture that she might have moved abroad. A lot of Polish people back in the 1980s and 90s went abroad to Britain and the United States because it was very hard to make a living in Poland. The salaries for nurses and doctors, believe it or not, are very low. And if you have a family, sometimes you just have to go elsewhere to give your children a decent life.
Yes.
So I'm surmising that she might have gone abroad, but in any case, her whereabouts are unknown, which is a shame. It would be interesting to get her perspective.
Maybe
40
years
afterwards.
Oh, I totally understand your, it definitely is a little bit of a shame, but I'm kind of like more power to her for getting away from the dog and pony show and living her life. What I'd like to really know is if she's had children, what her children can
Well,
right?
Unless we by some miracle find her again, we'll never know.
Well, yeah, maybe we'll never know. Maybe she knows what to look for and she keeps her children. No, it's okay. This is how you control it. And she's using, teaching these kids so on and so forth. But in this day and age, someone eventually will see somebody bending a spoon, and then you'll go boom, boom, 2 generations ago, and like, guess who we found?
Oh yeah.
You brought up just to go off on a slight tangent. This matter of spoon bending. Why is it important? It seems like such a trivial thing when in the larger scheme of things.
Bending a spoon,
but in another respect, it's very significant. Let's say there's this hypothesis that some disembodied entity entered her life for no rhyme or reason and started causing these destructive, events. If that is the case, did this entity also give her telepathic powers? Did it also enable her to bend spoons? I mean, it's one thing to cause psychokinetic destruction, but did this entity enter her brain and her fingers to give her these extraordinary powers? That's stretching one's credulity to a limit, I would think. I mean, that's where the spiritualist hypothesis falls short. It doesn't explain everything. It may explain the origin, but it doesn't explain the cessation of the phenomenon or the other aspects of it. It's incomplete. I think the scientific approach is much more responsible and comprehensive. That's my own view as a layman.
Right. I don't understand. A lot of people want to blame a third party, an entity or a spirit or, disembodied voice or whatever, and don't understand that as human beings, we only use maybe, if we use 5%, some people, usually more on the 2% scale. The abilities that we have are limitless, and you couldn't comprehend what we can't comprehend. So,
well, if you ever read that famous book, The Autobiography of a Yogi, which is a classic, that also sparked my interest in the paranormal. These things are taken for granted in other cultures, like shamans.
Oh yeah.
I mean, to them, such abilities are not anything extraordinary. They have command over these paranormal powers. And
that's like
Western science it's a useful tool, but it's not the all omnipotent explanation for everything that occurs in human behavior and in the natural world.
Well,
it's limited.
but think about this, right? So we have these yogis in the East that are significantly older. Like some of them are like over 100 years old. They have the ability, and it's been told that they have the ability to levitate in the process. But the arrogance of the West is, oh, well, we know better than you. I'm like, it's just mind blowing because there are other people in cultures that you would say, oh, they don't even have running water, but you're missing the point. Maybe you don't need it. It's just the mindset. It's crazy how people think.
Well, I call it tunnel vision.
Yep.
Outside the tunnel, everything is dismissed as unreal or insignificant.
Exactly. Well, and you work for the State Department, so you know very well.
Yes, I'm well aware.
Yeah, that's like me working for the IMF and the UN. Yeah, I got you.
I think
I'm sorry. I just wanted to
go
go
ahead.
back to the point of the spiritualist. I don't know. I may have sent all of you this review by Rob Tilley for the Australian Journal of Parapsychology. Now, he's a strict spiritualist. He dismisses all scientific research into psychokinesis or telepathy as superstition. Everything is caused by a disembodied entity. If you bring in a medium, because if you bring in a well-trained medium, you can eliminate all this problem. You don't need scientists. All this is, bunk. That's his very orthodox approach. But at the same time, he admitted in his review that he didn't understand the scientific theories presented in the book. So if he didn't understand them, how could he criticize them? How could he dismiss them? That's very arrogant. It's presumptuous. That's what I'm talking about. This tunnel vision. Everybody, either it's one or the other. Either it's strictly scientific or strictly spiritualist.
Well, right. The problem in this world with this quote unquote paranormal field is there aren't many ways to validate it, because most of the ways that you would use to validate it would be, as they say, debunked, because they're not, I know it's going to sound crazy, valid. So whereas in the scientist community, as long as you can say, okay, I did X, Y, and Z and it produced, gel, and someone can take X, Y, and Z and produce gel, well, that's valid because I can reproduce it. It's insane. There are things I've seen that we've talked about on the show. We have a lot of guests to talk about things, but there are some of us on the show that will believe that you had an experience, but they can't say that you actually had an experience with a Bigfoot or with a UFO or whatever, because they've never had that experience. So it's very frustrating. Mr. Craig or
Joel.
Yes.
Is there one of the things that interests me is how some of the older authors portrayed supernatural events. Have you read much from like Victorian ghost stories, or
I know what you're talking about, ectoplasm.
Yeah, things like that. Like
Hume in 19th century Victorian England, who could levitate up to the ceiling, and this was witnessed by very reputable scientists, not just by superstitious villagers. I would not discount these stories at all, but I'm not a student of
Yeah, I'm not really.
Paranormal research.
Yeah,
I've read articles here and there, but
yeah,
I don't think that these older researchers can be dismissed out of hand as ignorant, superstitious fools. Many of them are reputable specialists in their field. Like Charles Michelet, who's a Nobel Prize winner from France, he witnessed many of these early, psychokinetic phenomena, and I see no reason why he should be discounted as an observer.
yeah. Well, I've come across some of this stories, like House of Seven Gables, or some of Dickens's
Right?
ghost stories, Henry James's Turn of the Screw. You get some, uh, the kind of like ball lightning showing up in Journey to the Center of the Earth. There were those authors that tried to. They may have witnessed something, or they were developing ideas like based on folklore, but there was uh, an element of wanting to know something. Like the what was the cause that you mentioned? We don't know, but they were trying to. These Victorian authors were trying to get uh, maybe try to explain the do the same thing that was being done, 100 years later in this Polish case. And I think it's interesting that over such a long period of time, people are looking for answers.
Well,
Oh,
human curiosity
yeah,
uh, is it's the basis of science. Alchemy, alchemy goes back several thousand years. Alchemy, the great alchemists were also trying to uncover the secrets of nature. In fact, it may surprise you, but the great majority of alchemic texts have never been translated. They're in obscure languages, Old Arabic, Sumerian, Aramaic, what have you. And it's a shame because there may be some very valuable insights to be obtained from all these ancient texts. Where you're familiar with the concept of the Vimana, the flying machines in ancient Sanskrit literature.
yes,
Mm-hmm.
They were describing in the greatest technical detail the operation of these flying craft. This is not mythology. These people were describing something that they directly observed.
yeah. There's an honesty
And,
to their reporting.
Yes.
this goes back thousands of years.
Hmm.
So to answer your question, yes, this has been a strand in all human, activity. It may not have been called science as such, but people were making an earnest, serious effort to understand the reality around them.
Yeah, well, I'm going to touch on Max. He just dropped a question too because he missed part of it. I know we touched on it a little bit. So with Yuasha, so pretty much through the research, what are they? Did they ever come up with kind of an idea why it was a sudden stop in this thing? Was it just something that either the conditions in her, changed, or what? I know we talked a little bit about possibly like an outside
I
entity.
answer that question because I'm only the translator of book. All I can speak about is the knowledge that I obtained from meeting her, speaking with people who observed her, But what happened after I left Poland in 1990, I don't know. I'm not aware of any studies in the 1990s or afterward that would explain these phenomena, or why they started or why they ended. I wish I
Yeah,
could be
'cause
more helpful in the
yeah,
answer.
no, because I couldn't remember that from the book if they
And
ever
also,
actually came up with a conclusion.
There's no firm conclusion. The basic hypothesis, most of the research done before the end of 1986 was that there was an interaction between her hormonal changes and her emotional state. But why her? Why not other teenagers in puberty who also are going through, emotional upheavals? It's typical of the teenage years. There's no satisfactory answer that I'm aware of.
There are more people and teenagers and on the female side that do exhibit these type of behavior, but they may have been contained more so than this one young lady. That's why.
Well, her case is unusual that it lasted for 7 years, even after she passed the stage of puberty.
Yeah.
And that what makes her case rather unique.
It's definitely a unique case, but
Oh yeah,
we have people that have been psychic mediums since they could remember, and we're talking like really, really young, and they're still doing it now. They've actually gotten better at it. Some people haven't. But I would see that if you're a child and you keep doing the same thing over and over again, and eventually you'll be testing yourself, let me throw that knife at the board,
Yeah.
and eventually you'll learn how to somewhat control something of it. But you still would need, I would call like the Yoda of this type of thing, someone that could actually work with you and teach you how to control it and teach you how to do certain things.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because if you remember the chapter about the Japanese coming to Poland to study her, some of the Japanese team members suggested that she take up some sort of meditation or other spiritual exercise to control her emotions, because she lacked, from what I understand, she didn't have a great deal of concentration. She was easily distracted, and the idea was that if she could somehow get a better grip on her emotional, her distracted emotions, perhaps she could control herself a little better. But I guess she was not that ready to do it.
Right. I mean, it's interesting that they brought in the Japanese and to kind of take a look at this, and I didn't get up to this a certain point, but I'm trying to figure out the rationale behind it.
Well, if you read the chapter "Cold Eye of the Camera," it describes the activities of this Japanese research team. They put a camera in the apartment to record flying objects, and they did succeed in recording one flight so quick that you could only see a blur on the screen. But there were other physical effects that they were able to observe. Why did the Japanese come? Well, it turns out that at that very time they were doing a series of Japanese television on psychic phenomena in Japan itself. And I guess they wanted to compare Urasha's case with, Japanese
Their
Japanese counterparts.
And forgive me because I don't remember what text it was or what would, where I got it. I know it's from history, based on certain events in Japan that would be classified as paranormal. But there are individuals in Japan that were very well known for doing these type of acts.
Yes, they're mentioned in the book as a matter
Yeah.
of fact. I don't
Mhm.
don't ask me to recall their names.
Right, but I mean, there are certain cultures. Like we get back to that whole culture thing, like the East versus the West attitude.
Oh yes,
And
Mhm.
there are certain cultures where this is like, oh, this is, it's nothing. You'll learn how to deal with it. I'm sure
Mhm, mhm.
some of our indigenous members throughout history also had certain gifts and abilities that were, and then they went into you're working with the medicine man or you're working with the shaman. That's your gift. That's where you should be, type of thing. Definitely interesting. It would be nice to see more, like you have this case and try to find other cases around and then build on it as one giant, almost like an encyclopedia of this type of event.
Well, I'm sure
Yeah.
the people in London at the Society for Psychical Research, the SPR, have
Yep.
a wealth of material on these subjects. In fact, I know one of the members. She's going to be writing a review of the book. Actually, her name is Sophie Weaver. She's a native Polish woman who's been involved with paranormal activity research, rather, for decades, and she would be a very interesting person to interview.
Yeah.
I mean, she's a historian of this particular field.
Yeah.
Teruo Matsumoto is one of the ones that was involved.
No, thanks. I'll
Right.
have
That
something
now
different.
sounds familiar. Yeah.
Yep.
Actually, and I was leaning a little bit towards this, but we'll just bring her in anyhow. One of the listeners that's here is, her name's Katie Turner, and she said maybe she was a hybrid, which means maybe
What does that mean?
well, that would be a human mixed with an extraterrestrial or an interdimensional, and there are reports of what they call star children on this planet, which is a combination of extraterrestrials as well as humans.
Uh-huh.
They have very large eyes. You said she had piercing eyes.
Piercing eyes.
Yeah.
Piercing.
I don't know if they were larger.
You've seen her photographs. Photographs are in the book.
Right.
It's very noticeable.
Yep. I mean, she doesn't have the characteristic that I would know of a hybrid. I've seen some individuals that are, I'm 99% positive, are hybrids. They're wider and bigger eyes, just really big, kind of like that Disney-esque type of look. But hybrids are known to be able to do things that humans can't, and that's use more of their brain to manipulate material and elements. So that was
like I'm showing on camera here. Here's a
a
photo of her with the authors.
Which is certainly beyond my competence to answer.
Right. Now, it was just a great question because
yes, it is.
In this day and age of what they call disclosure, I mean, I was hoping, I didn't want to go down that route personally, but these are part of the things when you're investigating these things. And Katie actually is a very seasoned investigator of supernatural, paranormal. She does readings as well. And there are people that are, if I met somebody like this, I'd be like, okay, here we go. This is what we've been waiting for. And there are certain marks, when you have this type of poltergeist activity or the movement of cabinets or knives throwing or whatever, one of the things you want to check is, do you have a preteen in here? And is she female? And it's really weird, but this is some of the routes that you would have to look at, because for some reason, these young ladies are able to do things that most people just can't wrap their mind around.
Well,
that led me to translate the book.
Oh, yeah.
It's a window into another reality. Well, maybe another. I'm not going to say another reality. It's a reality that most people can't perceive, but it's real. And for whatever reason, we've lost the ability to access. I think it's this increasing emphasis on the left hemisphere, which has brought the progress of science, but it's diminished the role of the holistic view of the right hemisphere. There's a British scientist, Ian McGilchrist, if that name means anything to you. He's done extensive studies on this. The role of the
Name actually sounds familiar.
cerebral hemispheres in human history, how one age emphasizes one hemispheric activity to the detriment of another hemisphere. It's very unusual. In Western culture over the past few centuries, we've focused so much on the scientific method, the materialistic approach to reality, that our other abilities have kind of atrophied. You know, Australian Aborigines, for example, they're supposed to be very primitive people, but yet they can walk across thousands of miles of desert, you know, without maps and find their bearings. And they, you know, go into trances where they can access, you know, things that would be imperceptible to the ordinary human mind. So who is really primitive, Western man or the Australian Aborigine? It depends on how you look upon the matter. In some ways, perhaps they're much more advanced than we are.
Yes,
They're using the full power of their right hemisphere, whereas our abilities have kind of atrophied.
Right.
You know.
And you were talking about Dr. Ian McGilchrist, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, he had the divided brain and the search for meaning.
Incredibly brilliant.
Yeah.
And so brilliant. I'm just speechless when I listen to it.
I mean, this is a fascinating, book. And so Ian, every time I hear Ian or something like what this gentleman's name, I just can't not think of Spinal Tap. Sir Ian Hogg, and I just can't not think of that. I'm sorry. But the book I know is available on Amazon right now. And
Amazon, Barnes and Noble, if anyone's listening from abroad.
I've got a $50,000 question for you.
Took 2 days to get it here, just so you know.
2 days to get here, and I ask it all the time. If somebody would want an autographed copy of the book, is that available or not yet?
Autographed by whom?
Well, you can autograph it.
I'm only the translator. Do you want the translator's autograph?
Well, some people do. I mean, I don't think we're going to get Anna's or Merrick.
Well, Mark unfortunately passed away 4 years ago.
Yep.
So unless you can access him on the astral plane,
there's some people that can.
Get somebody that can auto.
Anyone
right.
indicates an interest in having me sign the book? You have my address, I assume. If not, I can give it to you, and you can provide my email.
I think
let's start with email. Have them contact you, because if you do it the other way,
any address for anybody.
Yeah, you'll get. You never know what trolls you're going to get from the internet sphere that are going to end up showing up at your house saying that they're your loves of your life.
Or how many car warranties are coming your way. So
I know what you mean. I get calls like that every day.
Yep.
Well, sure. Feel free to pass on my email. I have no objections to answering questions if I possibly can.
Sure.
Just remember, I'm the translator. I'm not a paranormal researcher. I'm not offering any authoritative explanation, just my personal opinion.
But Brian, we've been talking about how intriguing this case is, and Brian, you were just talking about the importance of like certain ages,
yep,
how that fits in with paranormal studies, and when, as Joel has been talking about some of the different kinetic experiences that people observe, like the bending of spoons, the X-Files devoted a whole show to it,
Oh
a
yeah,
whole episode. And that what probably came out 25, 30 years ago. This is that would be I don't know if there was a connection between the Elusive Force and the X-Files episode, but it shows how that something like this has been intriguing authors for some time.
right.
I don't know if there's a question. I'm just, making an observation.
I just think. I mean, I remember the episode you're talking about. So
There's a little
I'm all
boy.
in on.
Mhm.
Yeah, and there's a lot of people in Hollywood and in the entertainment industry that are reading things like this and know about things like this coming from a different perspective, and they incorporate it. They get that job and they incorporate it. If you want to know a lot about paranormal and supernatural and all that other stuff and how to protect yourself and some of the stuff that goes on, look at the show Supernatural. Whoever writes for that show, I who whomever.
Has a great imagination.
No, there's a lot of truth to what they're doing.
Well, I know, but it's what they also. It's
scary
like
how
they've got some great.
it's just scary how they're doing. I mean, like their tail end of the seasons, where God's writing his own novel and not paying attention to the hell on earth. We're kind of living through that right now. So, it's interesting. Maybe a higher power is using certain individuals and vehicles like books and these podcasts and TV shows and to get its message across. Like to like and subscribe to Three Beards podcast. See how I threw that in there?
Gratuitous plug. I like it.
Or
Yes.
Interject a
Yes.
remark. The term paranormal. I was a professional translator, and I'm very sensitive to the nuances of language. I think paranormal may not be the best term to use. It's a convenient term, but not maybe the most accurate. Why do I say that? Because paranormal, the concept changes from generation to generation. What is considered para in one century is taken for granted as an everyday event in the next century. Let's take the case of X-rays. Wilhelm Röntgen, 1895, I believe he discovered them. Now, 10 years before, the very notion of invisible rays through which one could observe, the workings of the body would have been considered delusional. And yet now we're using it without a second thought.
Right.
Yeah.
So there's really not such thing as paranormal in the strict sense of the word. We're just saying, everything is normal. We just may not understand certain phenomena, but that doesn't make them para. It just means that they're not understood.
Right.
They're part of reality.
I always like the term high strangeness.
Okay. I like that.
And
I like that.
And if you're really obnoxious, you can say Fortin. I'm a Fortin researcher. If you're obnoxious, that's what you say. It's like using big words, like their epidermis is showing, when people are like, oh my God. But I think high strangeness is a better way of saying there's something not normal here and not paranormal, but it's some kind of strange activity, and we're gonna have to break it down to figure it out.
What, do you have a problem with me using words like anti-disestablishmentarianism? Is that what you're trying to say?
No, I don't.
And just
language can be very misleading.
Yes.
At times, because we perceive the world through our language, and if the language is based on false notions, it can really create a lot of confusion and misunderstanding.
Just like
that's true of the word paranormal. It has a negative kind of a negative connotation. As if it's not not totally serious. You
Right.
know, it's on the fringe. You know, it's marginalized.
Right.
Parrot. It's not quite normal. Whereas I think that all these phenomena are normal. We just can't understand all. In fact, we don't even understand in what we consider normal processes. Do we really understand how the brain works? We don't understand all of its infinite possibilities. You know, as you mentioned, 2%, 5% is used by the average person. It's that much.
If
So I think we should pay special attention to our use of language when dealing with these subjects.
yeah, I think I just like you said, you know, it's detrimental when people use these things and try to classify stuff, or you know, the science today is just, I got to be honest, it's a joke. And I don't think there's much, you know, well, I'm a scientist. Well, in my from what I've seen and what I know, I don't normally trust that as something to be valid or whatever. You're a scientist. It's the same thing as the paranormal in my mind at this point. 'Cause you have to look at what's behind it and who's paying for it and the certain aspects of it in the language.
I think that's true of the so-called mental health profession. To go off on another tangent slightly,
Sure.
people use the term science of psychiatry.
Right.
It's not a science.
Yeah.
It's a bunch of hypotheses concocted by panels.
Thank you.
Who are often compromised by their ties to the pharmaceutical industry.
Thank
I have
you.
a real beef with this.
I like this
Sorry
guy.
to go off on this tangent, but
No. I'm
again,
keep going,
there's
Joe.
no such as
Keep going.
there's no such thing as mental health, because thoughts, emotions, and behaviors, in a strict sense of the word, can't be healthy or sick. It's absurd.
Right.
You know, I'm not saying anything original here. Dr. Thomas Szasz, the great, you know, author of Myth and Mental Illness, he brought this up back in 1961. We're dealing with metaphors. We're not dealing with scientific method at all. So why am I saying this? I'm saying we have to be very careful in our use of language, because sometimes it severely distorts reality. The term paranormal, I don't like. I don't like the term mental health. I don't like the term psychotherapy, because you can't have therapy of the psyche. You can't have therapy of the mind. It's absurd. You know, you can't cure the mind in a literal sense. You know, as in medicine, the mind is not a corporeal object to be cured.
Yeah, that's.
So
I've gotten too many debates about that. So,
but Three Beards eases your mind.
You should have a future podcast on that subject. You know.
Yeah, just give us a second. Dave Scott will create one for us.
Yeah, we'll be bringing
the crucial use and misuse of language in dealing with
the mental health podcast with Brian coming up.
No. I question all these people, and they always have. It's kind of like the flat Earth theories. They always have some kind of creative way of like getting around any of the questions. I'll leave it be. If it works for you, God bless. That's what I'll say.
That's right. All right. Well, what we should do is, look at this. We're at an hour and a half, so we got to wrap this up. But Joel, would
you like to ask me anything else?
Just what's your next work?
Yeah.
What's your next project?
Oh, you know,
this can't be one and done.
Year out of my life. It was like giving birth to a child. You know.
I'll pass.
Fortunately, I had valuable input. Dr. Broughton, who wrote the introduction to the book, made some very pertinent suggestions. Another researcher in Britain named Guy Lyon Playfair. I don't know if that name means anything to you, but he wrote a book called The Enfield Poltergeist, which deals with the famous poltergeist incident in England. He gave me some valuable suggestions, and my wonderful editor, the owner of Anomalous Books, Patrick Luigi. It's a Belgian French name. Don't ask me to pronounce it. But he also did a superlative job of editing. So it was a joint project. I had a lot of help. What am I going to do next? Well, I'll let reality decide. If something comes my way that interests me, I'm open to the possibility. Right now, I'm just resting a bit.
There you go.
Anyway, speaking of anonymous books, I really suggest the listeners look up their catalog because they have a wonderful range of material on all sorts of subjects like cryptids, UFOs,
Ooh,
psychic abilities. I mean, it's just a cornucopia.
Well, I'm sure
So,
Craig will be having that web address for Anonymous Books up in
yeah,
on
definitely
this.
pass it on to
Yeah.
any interested people.
Right. And I mean, I can't thank you enough for coming on. It's fascinating. You know, what I love the fact that you work for the State Department and then you're going into this. So it's a nice dynamic because you're getting in my opinion, a truer perspective. This was like, okay, where the hell did this come from? And then boom, you know, versus people that are already into it or already have their theories. It seemed to come from it a different perspective, which is I like that, and I appreciate you being on the broadcast.
Well, it was a lot of fun. I hope it was edifying and interesting to the podcast audience. And if you gentlemen would be kind enough to pass on my email address to any
Sure.
persons.
yeah, we'll get
Questions?
we'll get the archives circulating for you tomorrow as well, and get you a copy.
Yep.
Give
I'm
you
Please
there.
send me a copy,
Yeah, we'll,
and I'll forward it to all my friends in Poland and
Yeah.
elsewhere, and
We should.
it'll bring interest, bring attention to your own podcast, and let's make this a fruitful cooperation.
That'd be great.
you
Well,
know,
threaten me with a good time.
Thank you, gentlemen. You have a great evening.
All right, you too. And like I said, I'll post this up for everybody so that way they get your email address to reach out to you. Because I don't want to get, like I said, I don't want to give them your address because you're going to have somebody
Yeah.
who's going to say they're the love of your life
No
and be
more
at your door.
trolls, no more car warranties, no more seniors
Yes.
Medicare plans.
Exactly.
So on. Okay, well, you have a great evening, everyone, and take care. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, sir. Thank you. Have a great night.
You got it. Bye.
Bye.
Well, that was
All right.
Joel via the cell phone. Mark,
Yep,
you have
and I've
anything going on tomorrow, next week? Something big, next show?
On Nightlight next Tuesday, I have Jeffrey Wilson talking about his new publication on expanding on Squire and Davis's first publication for the Smithsonian, looking at all these native earthworks and the
Cool, that sounds
drawing.
great.
Yeah, and he would actually be a really good guest, for the Beards as well. It's actually a really interesting book, taking a look at these earthworks approaching 200 years later.
Yeah. That sounds. I like the. Yeah, I've been doing something with Ron Murphy with the earthworks, but I'd love to have this guy come on. But you got to ask the guy in the left square or rectangle.
Oh, okay.
This guy has a name.
Yeah,
Sorry, Captain Craig.
Yeah,
Captain Craig.
Yeah,
No, it's
yeah.
hey,
Here's that's not Jeffrey's book. He's working from this material, like drone footage of the
Earth, like the Serpent Bound and
exactly. Like Fort Hill. I just kind of opened of photos of like the Serpent Mound, which is just a couple miles away from Fort Hill. Stuff like that. How does it look today when he's flying a drone up there and
compared to the vellum based map, right?
Yeah, and
Yeah.
there's also like some of Squire and Davis's handwritten uh, notes, their observations. I've kind of been getting into that. How some of those guys from the taking the first measurements of some of these earthworks, their first impressions, uh, they were accurate. I don't think they were really influenced by, it's like, oh, we have to make this fit, Darwinian, principles.
No,
It's
yeah,
like
yeah,
this is what it was.
yeah. No, they did a great job back there because there wasn't any of the bullshit. It was
Yeah,
just get it done.
yeah,
Be cardiologist and get it done. And they did a really, really good job. Actually, a lot of those vellums and maps are now not public for multiple reasons because it conflicts with the fossil record or the historical record.
yeah. Jeffrey's a nice guy. I've you know met with him at a couple conferences and done some other podcasts with him. He will also be speaking at the Loveland Frogman conference in Cincinnati. Is it in May? I don't have the date in front of me. You can
Right.
Google it. Jeffrey's a good guy. He and his wife are very nice people, and I can add.
Ask the
Um,
Well,
boss upstairs.
well, Ron, we've tossed around that idea. It's just because I mean we've already let's say we've already breached. We've already breached the the containment field. So we might as well just welcome in Jesus on line 2. We got the devil on line 1. We'll just go full into the coast to coast because we're working on the criteria of does this guest meet these criteria? If they do, then we can pass them on to level 2 of let's try to book them. We've already we've already got a couple of criteria. Do they believe in this or do they believe in this? If the answer to either one of those two is yes, then no. Yeah,
Right.
then they go on to the next round.
Yeah, there are a lot of people out there that are just getting their latest publication to the public, and
How did I do my bent spoon? Metaphorically, pretty good. Metaphorically, Three Bears
Not
podcast says metaphorically. It's now a soundbite. Oh
That's
my
a
god!
classic sound coming at you.
The other one was really good. No.
No. My favorite, right there.
No.
You too. If we're gonna get the Craig doll, when you squeeze him, he's just gonna go.
No.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. We just have to add in the thing. Don't touch me there. Metaphorically.
Is Chris going on?
No, literally,
cruise?
don't touch me there.
Not
Metaphorically.
Chris,
Metaphorically.
Chris is on a gay cruise. Metaphorically. Yeah.
Oh my god. Yeah, we've had a couple of doozies.
Yes.
Yeah, no, so for people that want round 2, like I said, he's coming up on Nightlight. He's going to be there, and that's in March, correct?
Yeah.
The end of March.
That's I think Tuesday, March 19th.
Okay, yeah. So that's
Thanks, Ron.
yeah, it's definitely good. Yeah, but kind of like to Ron's thing, it's like open lines. I mean, I think it would really good. We need to look into it because I mean, I think it would be kind of cool to be able to take callers, like somebody that's got a thing, but at the same time, we'd have to have that format because I'm not going to want to just take a call based off of like the guest because it could go so sideways. I mean, you could have somebody like, caller online, wants to ask a question about the search. Oh my God, I'm the mother of your baby, and then it can just go completely sideways, and then we're just, then you're going to have me over there.
Soundbite I sent earlier today to the group.
Yeah, it is. You're going to have something it could go completely awry, but at the same time, it'd be pretty cool. It'd be cool to just have like an open line show where you could just have. I mean, I've even tossed around the ideas. We have a local we have a local show here called the News Junkies, and they do this weekly bit where they have a guy, Fitz on the street. He actually goes and he asks 8 people a series of questions, and then everybody on the show takes a guesses on how many people got the answer right. And I've thought about that. That would be cool to like have a bit, add that into the show too, where it would just be one where one of us just does like people on the street. We ask them questions. It's like kind of like the news story. It's like, and then us just guess how many people got it right, and then we figure out some way to give people like
Can we get-
stickers and stuff.
Can we get somebody in a state that doesn't have firearms in every house to be asking questions?
Well, you do it on the street. You don't. You just you go like down. I can do it downtown Winter Garden. Just ask a bunch of people. Yeah, it's just. Yeah, it's what I think it would be. I think it would be pretty cool. Yeah, so
I mean,
it's
that would be pretty good. I mean, we should have Chris go out. Chris be the guy on the street asking the questions.
that would just us guess, because obviously I wouldn't be able to guess if I was doing it.
Have
We'd
him
have
do
to-
the bike. Have him just drive the bike. It's my hologram sticker I just got.
Oh, that's nice.
We'll give you one
Yeah.
of these.
We'll have to come up. Yeah, 3 beers on the street. We'll have to come up with something like
3 beers on the street. Damn, I'm all for it. Right.
yeah.
there.
Yeah,
like
we'll have to figure out some. Yeah, some catchy little
Dice
slogan.
Videos.
Catchy
Oh, there we go. Say Calvis. Yeah, he's going to be at Contact in the Desert. That would actually be kind of cool if you could. We would definitely play some of those sound bites.
And Craig will pay for it for you.
It's
I'm volunteering you already.
I might be able to find a couple of dollars laying around somewhere.
Yeah. I had to turn down a TV deal though, like another spot, but it's fine.
What? I mean, not everybody's cut out for Bang Bros.
No, it's not Bang Bros. It was actually UFO related, but thank you very much. I don't have anything to do with gay porn, but as far as you're concerned, rest stops are known homosexual hangouts. Oh, look at the time.
That is what it's. I mean, at some point, when you want to talk, I said it'd be interesting to see. But I mean, it's one of those things I was pulling for. I was hoping that that was going to work out. It's too bad it didn't.
It did. Timing didn't work out, and we'll see what happens. Left the window open, so we'll see.
Yeah, and Kev was all I said. I'll reach out to you because I mean, it'd be one of those things. If you find some people, I would definitely take some of those audio and video clips and we could post it up there for people, because that would be really interesting to see, because that's one of those things I'd really like to.
Paranormal porn? What?
You didn't like that mountain movie?
No.
Brokeback.
It's just
SpaceX. Yeah, the like news thing. They're kind of rolling out. There's a couple of different things. Like Bezos is, finally broken free of the penis rocket, and he's actually building the
vagina
new
rocket.
Glenn rocket. Yeah, the giant one. They're rolling that out, and SpaceX just announced, and I was actually surprised too. They're deorbiting a few of the Starlink satellites that aren't functioning right. So they're going to be taking those out of service and deorbiting them. So it'll be interesting to see, because I think they're doing like 100 of them at one time, and so that's going to be interesting.
Somebody just got a really good deal with the U.S. government intelligence at SpaceX.
Oh yeah.
Just got a great deal.
I know, Cal. That's the other one too. That's the other SpaceX thing. I cannot wait for that one, because this one is the one, barring that there isn't something goes awry. This one is supposed to go out into orbit, circle around, and then come back. And then repeat. But that's one of the things too. The military. I need almost like a poll for everybody. Do you think that would actually be a functional transportation system to launch a Starship with military gear into combat zones?
No,
because they talked about that, launching it, basically launching it, and then it landing cargo just coming down, and then with Starship being able to take back off, move those things out of there. It's one of those things. I don't know if it would be. Let's see this one.
Nope.
I think this one. No, I was referring to the. Well, is that when you're talking about the military contract? Yeah, I mean, they did launch that. I mean, they've been doing a lot of stuff with Space Force anyway. But I mean, I think are you talking about the deorbiting of the satellites is somehow tied into military?
Does Chris have to do any special types of training for these types of vacations that he's going on?
No, 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 no.
Just another tube of anal ease, please.
Oh, I'm gonna get in trouble. He's gonna come back. What the hell did you do?
No, 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 no,
Hey,
no, no.
I'm just.
No, yeah, he should be. I think basketball's wrapping up soon, so hopefully he'll be back.
Yeah, you just said,
That was to say no. That doesn't. At least the deorbiting of the satellites is not tied to a military project.
okay.
Well, I give Chris the credit. You know, he's being a dad, and that's what you should be doing. You know. By the way, if you want to see a really great movie, Eastern Promises. I'll throw that at you.
When were you in that one?
I wasn't. Great movie. And
No, I did look. I just the way you plugged it, I was like, it was kind of like
no, it
like
was,
you had a cameo in it.
It happened to be on the desk about the Russian mob. It's fantastic.
Yeah, that's.
And the movie Deterrence. Go see it.
And
is that the one where they talk? I just want to quickly follow up with Brian. Is Deterrence the one movie where they talk about you have a pretty mouth?
No. That's not the movie.
Oh, okay, it was something different. Okay.
No.
No.
Nope.
That's
Nope. It's a thriller mystery. It's basically about the president gets stuck in a diner in the Midwest, and there's about to have a nuclear war. It's really, really good. I don't want to give any more away. It's worth seeing the whole thing, given what's going on right now in the world.
It's getting scary out there.
Kevin Pollak is the president. Yeah.
If you want more, go watch Idiocracy. That one's even more close to what's going on currently in the world of politics.
And the movie that Mark was referencing is Deliverance.
Deliverance, yes.
Okay.
And that took place in Appalachia, West Virginia.
How close is that, Mark?
There's a distance.
Dueling banjos, Mark.
Yeah, Calabos. He's involved in a Skywatcher group too, and I highly I don't have the quick link handy here with Mark D'Antonio. I encourage everybody to do that. That's a lot of fun. There's a lot of times
boy, Mark really knows his.
Yeah, I wind down. I wind down. And I watch that, and like stuff, like especially when they zoom in. There's a couple nights that I wind down with that. So it's definitely, I encourage everybody to go check that out. And Ron was even the winner of one of their giveaways.
Yes.
Yeah, you won a pair of binoculars.
There you go. I know Mark
through that.
Well, I know Ron knows Mark. Actually, I was supposed to about to give Mark a call about something, and someone else did for me, so it worked out great.
Yeah, so Mark D'Antonio does that show, and then Calabos is he'll be on there, kind of bit like a monitor, and he runs a giveaway. So
if Ron's been to Pine Bush, New York, for the Pine Bush UFO, there's nothing more hysterical than when Mark D'Antonio is giving his presentation, and he really brings it down for a lot of people, and it just flies over their heads. They're just like, oh God. They just don't get it. It's great. He's really, really smart.
But he presents
very well.
His information that just the layman would understand.
100%.
Yeah,
but there are still a lot of people that it's like deer in headlights. but he's an amazing guy. He's really fun, super knowledgeable, great guy. Friend, so but if you get a chance to see Mark D'Antonio, please go see him. He's fantastic.
Yeah, I'm trying to find the link as Calvis. I don't know if you got it real quick that I can put up there. I'm trying to locate it right now. Like I said, while we're doing this, I got Sky Tour live stream. With Mark. I think I found it here. It's
and he was in Alan B. Smith's movie as well, and Alan was a guest a year or so ago talking about
so
his movie.
When I did Alien Invasion Hudson Valley UFO, it was Mark D'Antonio, Melissa Title, and Ben Hansen as the experts. And I promised the producer we're going to bring in Kraft. I brought in 3 Kraft that night, and Mark couldn't figure it out. Ben was in awe. And when you stump Mark D'Antonio, you're doing a good job.
all right. There, I posted the link, so for people who want to watch that too.
Yes.
So yeah, there's that. So definitely check those things out. Those are whenever it's a clear day in Arizona, they go live.
Yep.
They start streaming. So Sky Tour live stream with Mark D'Antonio on YouTube, and I said I got the link up there for that channel there. All right, everybody. So next week, like I said, if Brian and Chris decide they want to have a little get together, hey, we can make that happen. But I go pretty much we're gonna take a break. It's my son's birthday, so I won't be here for sure. So if something happens, great. If not, everybody do it. And Kelly, you are more than welcome.
Why can't Mark have a Mark Eddie Pajama Jammy Jam?
Still supposed to do a show with wearing one of Varla's onesies.
There you go.
Oh yeah, we need to have.
Yeah,
it's been a while since we've had her on the show. We need to catch up and see how she's doing. I've got her collection of her books alone.
I don't think Crit ain't gonna do shit. So whatever. It's been fun. I'll see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Yep. So definitely, and that's going to be. Let me get I'm going to post the calendar for everybody, so that way we know.
Okay.
So I can tell everybody what's coming up, because that's one. Because we got a couple. We definitely have some really cool guests coming up. That some of them are repeats that we've had before. The next one on March 6th is Maria Wheatley, The Secret History of Stonehenge. We're going to have her on for that one. And Mark was telling me, she's run afoul with royalty.
Oh, bloody shame, isn't it?
Yes. King Charles does not like her works.
Well, he's a big dick to begin with, so who cares?
Yeah. So then we have Dr. Rita coming on. She's repeating. She's going to be talking about her latest book.
So does Maria.
Yep. And then Margie Kay is going to be in talking about winged cryptids. And then Paul Eisen is going to be back on. So he'll be back on into the month.
You signed him up for another round, huh?
Mm-hmm. We'll give him another shot there.
Oh, God.
And then Jack Carey will be back on April 3rd for the prediction update. So for anybody to go back to the first show here, and you can see the predictions that him and Brian made for that thing. And so we're going to look again, and this is the update to see what has come true, what didn't happen, what was close, what wasn't close, what deviated, and we'll have kind of a rehash over there, and then we'll kind of go, then maybe re-up the thing and see if they want to predict for the next round. So that's the ones that we got coming up here. So
that would be great. But can I suggest something? Maybe a new game we can play. Like, every time you hear this sound,
no.
Have a shot.
That's right.
Now on. Every time you hear Greg go, no.
Take a shot.
Yep. That's it.
So yeah, so we got some really good shows coming up. I mean, I said they're going to be really informative. That Maria, that's going to be a nice one. I mean, I need to get over to England just so I can have a
Elongated
pint with her.
skulls.
Yeah, that way I can go meet
Well,
up
it's
with
been
Maria and
fun,
have a
guys.
pint over there.
I'll
That'd be
go back
fun.
to the UN and tell them what a great job you guys are doing here.
That's right. That's right. The blue hats.
We really need
Radio.
to be sponsored by also Buc-ee's.
Buc-ee's. I know. We got to reach out. It's like, come on, you got to sponsor us here.
That'd be great.
All right, everybody. Well, thank you. So, Mark, so everybody go support Barbara DeLong and Mark Eddy on Nightlight. You can find that Barbara DeLong on YouTube. Brian, you can find him. He's got thousands of podcasts out there. You pretty much search up Brian M. Bowden and you will find him everywhere. You'll find him on shows. You'll find him on YouTube. You'll find him on Dave Scott latest podcast. I said,
no, whatever.
Yeah,
I'm around someplace.
Yes. So we tune in. I said, I'm not sure, how many more of those you're going to do, but you had an interesting show the other night, so that was pretty interesting. Everybody can check that one out too.
That was cool indeed.
I know it was a good 3 weeks.
I so much like doing this where look, it's not my responsibility. That's the guy right there, right over there. I'll just bring in the guests, blame him. Makes it easy.
That's awesome. Sounds don't pull Craig's finger.
Don't pull Craig's finger.
Yep, Jameson on deck. Yep.
Oh
no. There you go. Take a shot. All right, man. We'll appreciate it. All right, Mark. What do you want to see us out?
Cow abductions.
Cow abductions. All right, we can do that one. All right. So everybody, we will see you in a couple of weeks for sure. Possibly next week if those two decide that they, something's burning that they got to talk about.
And maybe Brian in the promo material.
There you go. That's right. All right, everybody. Have a great night. We will see you on the next one. Good night. Good night now.